When I first packed my bags and moved from America to the United Kingdom, I had a very specific picture of what British food was going to be. Back in the United States, we are practically raised on the belief that British food is bland, unseasoned, and incredibly cheap to make. But then I actually got here and I started walking down the supermarket aisles and I was literally shocked. I realized that so many of the absolute cheapest, most basic comfort foods that British families have been eating for generations to save money have been completely hijacked by trendy American cafes, repackaged with fancy words, and sold back to us in places like New York and Los Angeles for $25 a plate. We need to talk about this because the level of food gentrification happening across the Atlantic is honestly mind-blowing. In the United States, we would never think of a basic tin of beans or a simple pastry as a luxury status symbol, but as soon as we import it, we make it impossibly expensive. Today, I am breaking down the humble British classics that Americans somehow turned into high-end designer delicacies. And trust me, some of these price markups will make your jaw drop. Let us start with the ultimate king of British comfort food, beans on toast. In the United Kingdom, beans on toast is not just a meal, it is a national monument. It is a sacred institution. It is what you eat when you are a broke college student, when it is the night before payday, or when you are just too exhausted to function. You buy a tin of Heinz baked beans at the supermarket for about 50 pence. You toast a couple of slices of cheap white bread. You heat the beans up, pour them over the toast, maybe grate some cheddar on top, if you are feeling fancy, and you are done. It is the ultimate quick, comforting, and cheap dinner. But here is the truth. The baked beans you get in the United Kingdom are completely different from the ones we have back in America. In the United States, our baked beans are incredibly sweet, thick, and usually loaded with brown sugar, molasses, and bacon. They are treated as a heavy side dish for a summer barbecue. British baked beans are much more savory, with a thinner, rich tomato sauce. They are meant to be the main event. When I first moved here, my British friends told me about eating beans on toast, and in the United States we would never put canned beans on bread. It sounded bizarre to me, but once I tried it, I realized it is actually amazing. To give you some hilarious historical context, when Heinz first brought baked beans to the United Kingdom in the early 1900s, they were actually sold as an exotic, high-end American luxury import at Fortnum and Mason. But during the World Wars, because they were shelf-stable, high in protein, and cheap to produce, they became a crucial part of the British rationing system. That is how they transitioned into the ultimate working-class staple. However, back in America, the hipster food scene got a hold of this humble British staple, and things went absolutely off the rails. If you walk into a trendy brunch spot in Brooklyn, Los Angeles, or Austin, you will not find a simple can of Heinz beans. Instead, they have rebranded this 49 pence meal into a gourmet masterpiece. They call it something like slow-simmered organic Tuscan white haricot beans in a hand-crushed vine-ripened tomato reduction, finished with flaked Maldon sea salt and a drizzle of cold-pressed organic olive oil, served over a slice of artisanal, 24-hour slow-fermented leavened sourdough. And the price tag? They are charging $18, $20, or even $22 for this. I was literally shocked when I saw this on a menu in California. It is the exact same basic concept of putting white beans on toasted bread, but because they used a few fancy words and served it on a rustic wooden board, Americans are happily paying 1,000% markup for a meal that is traditionally meant to save you from going broke. It is the ultimate form of culinary gentrification. Next up, we have to talk about the legendary sausage roll. If you have ever spent more than 5 minutes in the United Kingdom, you know that Greggs is a literal religion. It is a British institution. The sausage roll is the absolute star of the show. It is seasoned pork sausage meat wrapped in layers of golden, flaky puff pastry. You can walk into any high street, find a bakery, and buy a warm sausage roll for about £1.20. It is greasy, it is comforting, it is incredibly cheap, and you usually eat it out of a paper bag while walking down the street in the freezing cold. It's the food of the people, designed to be quick, warm, and highly affordable. In the United Kingdom, sausage rolls became popular during the 19th century as a cheap, portable street food for industrial workers in London. It was a genius way to get a quick hit of protein and carbs while working long hours in factories. The British took this concept and built an entire culture around it. But in the United States, savory pastries are not really a staple of our daily lives. We are obsessed with sweet pastries like donuts, croissants, and danishes, But the idea of meat wrapped in puff pastry as an everyday breakfast or lunch snack is quite rare. So when trendy American bakeries and high-end cafes in Manhattan and Los Angeles discovered the humble sausage roll, they did not see a cheap 1 pound snack. They saw a premium exotic European delicacy. They took the basic sausage roll, rebranded it as a gourmet sausage puff pastry roll, stuffed it with heritage pork mince, fresh fennel, and caramelized onions, and started selling it in aesthetic glass display cases for $10, $12, or even $14 a piece. I remember visiting a specialty bakery in New York before I moved to the United Kingdom, and I paid $11 for a single sausage roll. I thought I was indulging in some incredibly rare, high-end British culinary art. Then I moved to London, saw everyone buying them for £1 at a train station, and realized I had been completely conned by American marketing. It is literally just seasoned meat and pastry, but because it feels slightly European, Americans are willing to spend a fortune on it. Quick thing before we get to the absolute craziest food on this list, the data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you're showing up for the food culture shock, but the algorithm has no reason to show you my next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now, let us move on to crumpets. In the United Kingdom, crumpets are the ultimate lazy weekend breakfast. They are these thick, spongy, griddle-baked round breads with a unique texture, full of little holes on the top. The whole point of a crumpet is to toast it until it is slightly crispy on the outside, and then spread an absolute mountain of butter on top so that the butter melts and pools inside those tiny holes. When you bite into it, the melted butter literally bursts out. It is incredibly satisfying. In a British supermarket, you can buy a pack of 6 Warburton's crumpets for about £1. It is a staple of almost every British household, and it is dirt cheap. The science behind a crumpet is actually fascinating. It is a loose batter made with yeast and baking powder, which is cooked on a griddle inside metal rings. The steam rises through the batter, creating those iconic vertical tunnels that open up on the surface. That is what creates the perfect sponge for butter. In America, we completely miss this magic because we try to cut them in half like English muffins, which literally ruins the entire structure. But back in the United States, crumpets are almost impossible to find. Most Americans do not even know what a crumpet is, often confusing it with an English muffin, which is a completely different texture. Because of this scarcity, crumpets have this air of mystery and high society elegance in America. We associate them with tea time, with the king, or fancy Victorian period dramas, so naturally, high-end American cafes decided to capitalize on this. Instead of serving simple toasted crumpets, they started making their own homemade artisanal sourdough crumpets, griddle-baked in small batches. They served them with gourmet toppings like lavender-infused wildflower honey, hand-churned sea salt butter, or house-made seasonal berry compote, and they are charging $14 or $15 for a plate of 2 crumpets. It is mind-blowing to me. When I first tried a crumpet in London, I was expecting this highly sophisticated luxury baked good because of how they are romanticized in American culture. I was literally shocked to find out they are just a super cheap, everyday grocery item that costs pennies per serving. We have turned a humble, spongy breakfast bread into a high-end designer experience just because of the British name tag. This brings us to a massive trend that has completely taken over American social media in recent years, the tinned fish date night. In the United Kingdom and across Europe, tinned fish like sardines, mackerel, and anchovies have been a dependable, budget-friendly pantry staple for generations. Sardines on toast was a classic ration era meal during the war because it was cheap, shelf-stable, and packed with protein. Almost every British kitchen has a tin of sardines or mackerel tucked away in the back of the cupboard for when there is nothing else to eat. It is a humble, working-class food that you can buy for under £1. Historically, tinned fish was the backbone of coastal British communities. It was how families preserved the catch of the day during the harsh winter months. It was a food born out of absolute necessity and geographic isolation. But then, American influencers on TikTok and Instagram discovered tinned fish and they completely transformed it. Suddenly, eating fish out of a metal can was not a sign that you were struggling to pay rent. It was rebranded as hot girl food. It became the ultimate aesthetic lifestyle trend. Trendy American startups started launching with gorgeous pastel-colored cans featuring beautiful typography and hand-drawn illustrations. Brands like Fishwife started selling tins of smoked salmon, sardines in chili crisp, and anchovies. But instead of charging $1, they started charging $10 to $15 for a single, tiny can. They created the tinned fish date night, where couples arrange multiple tins of fish on expensive wooden charcuterie boards, surrounded by organic olives, capers, artisanal crackers, and expensive bottles of natural orange wine. Suddenly, what used to be a cheap $2 pantry meal became a $60 luxury experience. My British friends find this absolutely hilarious. To them, the idea of setting up a romantic date night around a can of smelly sardines that their grandpas used to eat to save money is just absurd. But in America, if you put a beautiful label on it and call it simple European elegance, people will pay a premium for it. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of my expat survival stories, join the membership below. That is where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this cultural food madness, and the extra bits I cannot always fit into the main videos. Now, let's talk about the Scotch egg. In the United Kingdom, the Scotch egg is the ultimate picnic and petrol station food. It is a hard-boiled egg wrapped in sausage meat, coated in breadcrumbs, and deep-fried. Traditionally, you buy them cold in a plastic pack of 4 at a local supermarket for about £2. It is a quick, heavy, highly processed snack that you eat on the go. It is delicious, but it is definitely not considered fine dining. It is the kind of food you buy when you are on a road trip and need something cheap and filling to keep you awake. The irony of the Scotch egg is that it actually started as a luxury item created by Fortnum and Mason in London back in 1738. It was designed as a portable, neat snack for wealthy travellers who were carriage riding out of London. Over the centuries, it became mass-produced and cheapened into the cold, processed supermarket snack we know today. But now, American gastropubs have brought it full circle, making it a high-priced luxury item once again, though they probably have no idea they are repeating history. But when the Scotch egg crossed the Atlantic, American gastropubs looked at it and saw a golden opportunity for culinary gentrification. They did not want to serve a cold, hard-boiled egg. Instead, they elevated the entire concept. They started using pasture-raised organic soft-boiled eggs, so that when you cut the Scotch egg in half, the yolk is perfectly soft and runny. They wrapped it in artisanal, heritage sage sausage, coated it in light Japanese panko breadcrumbs, deep-fried it to order, so it is served hot and crispy, and placed it on a bed of microgreens with a side of house-made black truffle, aioli, or whole-grain mustard. And they are charging $18 for a single egg. I was literally shocked when I first saw this in a trendy gastropub in Los Angeles. To a British person, paying $18 for a Scotch egg is absolute madness. It is like paying $20 for a single corn dog. But Americans love the theatre of a runny egg yolk, and by turning a cheap cold picnic snack into a hot gourmet appetizer, gastropubs have made it one of the most expensive things on their menus. Next, we have to talk about porridge, or as we call it in America, oatmeal. Porridge has a long, rich history in the British Isles, especially in Scotland, where oats have been a dietary staple for centuries. In the past, Scottish families would cook a massive pot of thick, unsweetened porridge, pour it into a wooden drawer, let it cool and solidify, and then slice off a piece of cold porridge to carry with them to work. It was the ultimate food of survival, cheap, slow-burning energy built from nothing more than oats, water, and salt. Even today, a giant bag of rolled oats at a British supermarket costs next to nothing, making porridge one of the cheapest breakfasts you can possibly eat. But in the United States, we have completely transformed this simple peasant food into a luxury wellness status symbol. If you walk into a trendy health cafe or a juice bar in West Hollywood or Miami, you will not find a simple bowl of hot oats. Instead, they serve gourmet steel-cut oat bowls. They infuse the oats with blue spirulina, matcha, or activated charcoal to make them look colourful and photogenic for social media. Then they pile on expensive superfood toppings like organic goji berries, raw cacao nibs, hemp hearts, sliced organic dragon fruit, and a drizzle of adaptogenic reishi mushroom honey. And they are charging $16 for a single bowl of oatmeal. It is literally just oats. The base ingredient costs about 10 cents, but because it has been rebranded as a high-vibe wellness bowl, Americans are willing to pay an astronomical markup. In the US, we have turned a historic survival food designed to keep Scottish crofters alive in the freezing cold into a luxury breakfast for wealthy wellness influencers. Finally, we have to talk about the humble cheese toastie. In the United Kingdom, a cheese toastie is the ultimate late-night comfort food. Almost every British kitchen has a cheap toastie maker, which is a small machine that clamps two slices of bread together with cheese in the middle, sealing the edges to create hot pockets of melted cheese. You make it with whatever cheap white bread and pre-grated cheddar you have in the fridge. It is quick, messy, and incredibly cheap to make. It is the ultimate nostalgic snack that almost every British person grew up eating. But in the United States, we do not call it a toastie. We call it a grilled cheese, and we have taken this simple comfort food to a level of extravagance that is honestly ridiculous. Trendy American food trucks and artisanal cafes have turned the humble grilled cheese into a gourmet dining experience. They use thick slices of brioche or pain de campagne, spread it with imported French butter, and stuff it with a blend of 5-year-aged, cave-aged cheddar, Gruyere, and caramelized onions, all drizzled with expensive black truffle oil. They serve it alongside a shot of heirloom tomato bisque, and they are charging $22 for it. We need to talk about this because the contrast is hilarious. To a British person, a cheese toastie is a quick, cheap fixed dinner you make when you have nothing left in the pantry. But to an American, a gourmet grilled cheese with truffle oil is a premium lunch option that you pay luxury prices for. We have taken the absolute simplest, cheapest form of comfort and made it expensive by adding unnecessary luxury ingredients. Seriously, if you love this content and want to show some support for Olivia, your favorite American expat surviving the British cultural shock, please hype up this video by hitting the like button and dropping a comment below. It helps so much when you show that love, and it tells the algorithm that we are building an amazing community here. At the end of the day, living in the United Kingdom for the past couple of years has completely changed how I look at food. It is fascinating to see how the cultural context of a country changes the value of what we eat. In Britain, there is this wonderful, unpretentious appreciation for simple, budget-friendly comfort food. There is no shame in eating beans on toast, grabbing a quick sausage roll from Greggs, or having a cold Scotch egg on a picnic. These foods are loved precisely because they are cheap, comforting, and reliable. But in America, we are so driven by trends and marketing that we feel the need to gentrify everything. We take these humble classics, wrap them in fancy descriptions, add some truffle oil or avocado, and turn them into expensive luxury items. It makes me appreciate the simple British way of eating so much more. You do not need to spend $25 on a gourmet brunch to have a comforting meal. Sometimes a 50p tin of beans and a slice of toasted bread is all you really need to feel at home.